you really want to explore your own money beliefs and your mindset around money and where it comes from. Because I think you take the fear away from something by shining a light on it and exploring it. And I've got a money mindset course based on exactly like that I call like Make Friends with Your Money Monsters. The idea that the monster under the bed isn't scary anymore when you've switched the light on.